It's been more than 5 months since several gunmen assassinated Haitian President Jovenel Moïse and wounded his wife in a raid on their home in Port-au-Prince. According to a New York Times investigation, Moïse was compiling a list of officials and businessmen linked to the drug trade before he was murdered, and he had planned to give those names to the U.S. government. Maria Abi-Habib authored that report and joins me now. She is the bureau chief for Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean for the New York Times. Maria, welcome. Thanks very much for being with us. This is an extensive report. You interviewed some 70 people, more than 70 people, traveled to 8 out of Haiti's 10 states. Explain, first of all, why the United States would need this document, this list that we mentioned.
So I think we have to keep in mind that, the United States, we tend to think of it as this omnipresent force, this just giant superpower with all sorts of fingers in every single pie. But there are certain places where it's just really quite impossible for them to gather intelligence. And from what I understand, is Haiti's one of them. And part of the problem is that Haitian police have a terrible track record of human rights. They have allegedly been involved in drug and arms smuggling, and that prevents the United States from actually carrying up with Haitian police to cooperate deeply on things like drug busts, and also to run a wiretapping program in the country. Now, that is really vital if you're trying to make a case against a narco trafficker, for instance. And there are several that have been suspected of narco ties for years, but they just simply cannot make the cases because they need to have, beyond any doubt, like that much evidence in order to go to trial and actually convict these people. And without those resources on the ground, they're unable to.
Well, President Moïse's wife, Martine, was in the room when assassins gunned down her husband. Does she know who could be involved?
There's been lots of speculation on that. Some people say that she was purposefully kept alive as a warning. Don't do this. She also has quite a bit of information. Her husband was they were each other's greatest confidants. And so she probably has her own suspicions. We had the first interview with her. We have not been able to get her since. But one thing that she said was while she was pretending to be dead after the assassins came in and shot her husband several times, killed him. They were looking for a list, and these people were speaking in Spanish. And they kept saying, that's not it in Spanish, until eventually they said, that's it. They got it, and they left. And they fled all around the country into various places like Jamaica.
Well, President Moïse had publicly criticized Haiti's oligarchs and political elite for trying to kill him. So if there were so many obvious threats to his life, then why wasn't he given more protection?
Well, I mean, this is the tragedy of what happened with him, is that the threat came from within. He thought that he could trust his security team. Now, the person who was in charge of guarding the police unit that guards the presidential residence or palace was a man named Dimitri Herard, who was also actually under suspicion for drug trafficking and also arms trafficking. Moïse did not trust him. That flipped all of a sudden earlier this year for complicated reasons I won't go into. Moïse ended up putting in a lot of trust to him, but that was the person who allegedly ended up being his greatest betrayer and opened up the doors. His forces basically opened up the doors for these assassins and allegedly didn't even engage them and let them come waltz through and kill the president. So.
Well, your reporting also mentions the former president of Haiti who chose Moïse to be his successor. What kind of role did he play in Moïse's government, and is he also being investigated in his killing?
Well, what we know is that his brother-in-law, former President Michel Martelly's brother-in-law, Kiko St. Remy, was a suspect at the very beginning of the United States' separate investigation into Moïse's killing, which is being led by the FBI. Now, that investigation has stalled for lots of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Haiti is just a notoriously difficult place to gather intel. But American officials told us in Washington, D.C., that yes, Kiko St. Remy was a main suspect at the beginning of their investigation. They're not saying that he's no longer a suspect, but they're just saying that the investigation has stalled. Now, Michel Martelly had a very, very big role allegedly in Moïse's cabinet. He and Kiko St. Remy and also his wife, former First Lady Sophia Martelli, were hugely influential. They did everything from choose cabinet ministers, we were told by several associates, to choosing who got what government contract, is what has been alleged by various sources who we interviewed. And that relationship really went sour in the last months of Moïse's life. And Moïse actually started moving on that family, Kiko, Michelle, and Sophia. And we also have to keep in mind that Michelle is contemplating a run next year and to become president, and is probably the front runner.
Well, we know that a former DEA informant who's accused of commanding Mr. Moïse's assassins is still on the loose. How has the DEA been wrapped up in this story, and what's the latest on that angle of the investigation?
Well, a lot of people say the DEA has a lot of questions to answer. There are lots of corruption allegations actually around the DEA's office in Haiti, involving former officials, including country attachés, allegedly misappropriating congressional funds and siphoning them off, to even meeting with Kiko St. Remy, who was a DEA suspect in the narcotics industry, one-on-one, which goes against DEA rules. I have been asking the DEA for comment pretty much every month, every other month since August. In my long career as a foreign correspondent, I have to say that the DEA really doesn't believe that it has to answer any questions from the media, very rarely does, very little cooperation, which was actually cited, their lack of transparency was cited as a huge issue by the Senate Judicial Committee, which cited one of my reports back in August, and also just lingering problems that have, plagued the DEA office for years, saying we need more transparency here. So we don't really understand why the DEA thinks that that they don't have to answer questions. I mean, the State Department does, the Pentagon does, but lots of lawmakers in the United States are very concerned by the DEA's lack of transparency and their inability to really get results, because whatever they're doing is just not working. Haiti actually has become a much larger problem over the years. It's now considered to be one of the biggest, or it may be one of the biggest transit routes for cocaine heading to the United States from South America. So yeah, lots of answers. There are lots of questions, very few answers.
Yeah, I was going to say, so many open questions, especially with respect to the DEA. While we have you, Maria, as we reported earlier, there was a horrific fuel tanker explosion in Haiti. This is a nation that, as you well know, has seen tragedy after tragedy. How is this recent disaster affecting people? Give us a sense of what Haitians are dealing with right now.
Well, at this point, I think that Haiti just we always say this, Haiti cannot deal with any more tragedies or disasters, and then inevitably another one happens. I mean, this is just the most unlucky country, it feels like, in the world. It's super tragic. Haitians deserve a lot better. And, this is a problem that is a mixture of, the international community's failure to have a plan in Haiti, to bring on Haitian stakeholders, and instead kind of prop up politicians who have serious question marks around them. It's also a problem of Haiti's corrupt political class. And it's also a problem of the gangs. And the gangs at the moment are holding up fuel across the country, or have been holding up fuel. And Haitians are just really incredibly poor. It's probably one of the poorest places I've ever been to. And once this tanker crashed, people went out and started trying to recover whatever they could of the fuel, and it exploded and, caused a lot of casualties.
It's a tragic situation. Well, Maria Abi-Habib, we thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for caring about Haiti.